You found me standing in the middle of a stream. Your hand was steady, like a fire in my bones. Now my feet keep moving. I'm not walking this alone. Yeah, yeah. Lift me higher, pull me through. I was broken, now I'm new. Lift me higher, hear me call. When you move in, I stand tall. Holy water flow, wash me more and more. Holy water flow, I was bound before. Holy water flow, make my spirit roar. Holy water flow, I'm alive for sure. Hey, hey, I wore my sorrow like a chain on my chest, but joy came rising and it wouldn't let me rest. Hey, 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 every scar on me turned into a song. Now I lift my hands up and I sing all night long. Lift me higher, pull me through. I was broken, now I'm new. Lift me higher, hear me call. When you move in, I stand tall. Holy water flow, hey, yeah. Wash me more and more. Holy water flow, I was bound before. Holy water flow, make my spirit roar. Holy water flow, I'm alive for sure. I feel it now. You change the ground. Say it again. Hey, come on, come on. I came in heavy, carried all that rain. You found me standing in the middle of a stream. Your hand was steady, like a fire in my bones. Now my feet keep moving. I'm not walking this alone. Yeah, yeah. Lift me higher, pull me through. I was broken, now I'm new. Lift me higher, hear me call. When you move in, I stand tall. Holy water flow, wash me more and more. Holy water flow, I was bound before. Holy water flow.
Welcome to Do Good Work Podcast, hosted by Terrell and J'Quen Johnson. We specialize in taking a deep dive into issues that truly matter. Each episode unpacks the challenges and opportunities facing today's leaders, from classrooms to boardrooms, offering insights that inspire real change. By redefining success, we're changing lives, empowering people everywhere to create environments where everyone feels a sense of belonging, whether at home, work, or school. So hey, sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we explore the issues shaping our futures, one meaningful conversation at a time. Let's go!
Awesome. Welcome to each and every one of you, and happy Sunday. It is August 23rd, and we are delighted to have you here at Do Good Work Podcast. I'm your co host, Terrell Strayhorn, joined in the studio by my co host, J'Quen. And we are excited to have each and every one of you here. And so, do what we normally do. If you haven't already, please help us go to the channel. You can like, you can subscribe, you can share, you can drop the link into your favorite group chat, WhatsApp, all of these places. I'll do the same to make sure we have folks in the studio with us for tonight, what promises to be a really wonderful show. And y'all know how we do it. We start each week off with our opening game. And so I'm going to kick it over to J'Quen to do what we do, and that is.
Yep, like every other week, use the first letter of your last name to describe your day or week. Love that one. First time seeing it. First letter of your last name to describe your day or week. Type it in the chat, and then we will show it on the screen. So go ahead and think about your word, type it so we can show it. I'll go first. Johnson J. I'm gonna go with the juggling. Last week I was battling a cold, I think, but healed from that. Got most of the things on my checklist done. So it was a pretty light week. But now that students are back on campus, one thing I did not realize how many times I had to pause from what I was doing to talk with students who stop by my office to have conversations. Most of these students are student ambassadors, so they want to tell me about their summer. I want to ask about my summer. Good conversations. Love that they stop by to talk. But it requires me to shift my focus to talk with them and then shift back and get back on track. But all in all, a good week. Looking forward to the week coming up. What about you?
Awesome. Listen, y'all, we got the image because we want you to help us. So you participate by dropping into the chat, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you, or YouTube. Drop your word in the chat and we will see it. Primarily, we see YouTube right into the studio, but any other ones you can do it. And so I would say that my word of the week is, I'm going to go with, I thought about this in the pre-show. I'm going to go with the word song, SONG, because one of the things I've been really doing this week, other than just a lot of content creation, is and of the content that I created, one of them is for those of you who follow me on social media, especially YouTube, I dropped a album this week. So it is called Morning Motivation. They're original songs created so that you can, it's no fussing, no yelling, no cussing, just good, positive affirmation kind of music. I actually had it circling live today on YouTube, saw folks who were tuning in. Thank you for those who reached out and shared your thoughts. But yeah, song, that's my song, my word of the week, song. And hopefully this is volume 1. So I've already started on volume 2, and then I've got a couple of special editions I want to do. And so looking forward to that. What are y'all's words for the week? Pick the first letter of your last name and then put a word either in the chat. And by the way, if you think it, if you say it out loud, but you don't put it in the chat, we won't know it and we can't put it on the screen. So if you don't mind, even if you're listening in through your device while driving, if you're driving, don't do it. But if you are in a position where you can actually go and put it in the chat, put it in the chat and we'll put it on the screen for you. Kick it back over to you, J'Quen.
Yeah, so let's go through you want to go to the first topic?
Well, so our normal lineup is we go from the word of the week. Sorry, I'm over here trying to drop this into 1,005 different chats. But we also then go into our work wisdom, as someone told me recently. And so I don't know, any work wisdom, something about doing good work, how you do good work, when you do good work, what you experience, but something that a piece of.
Yeah. This is good. I actually actually, I did not think about this before the show, but I do have something in mind because we went through another round of interviews for a position. And I would say that have your stories ready to go before you come into the interview, because oftentimes kind of what I see is some folks, we ask them a question and then they try to give us an example through story. You can tell like, I don't know if they're making up the story or if they just haven't practiced the story. So know like some of your accomplishment and achievements, some challenges that you faced, and how you overcame it. These will be some direct questions like, tell me a time where you faced a challenge and what did you do to overcome it? Like that's an example that you can use in the story that you already have in your back pocket to share with the committee. And there are other things that they ask, but I think that you should be prepared to have a couple stories in your back pocket, maybe 3 or 4 that you can use in your interview.
I love that. So my work wisdom, and you know this because we talked about it this week, is it's just so interesting to, we got words. All right, we got superb week. Hello to my mother, superb week. That's right. Dr. Reginald is in the house. L is in Lewis, lively. Yeah, these are good words. All right, y'all, keep them coming. And we'll share them on the screen, or if you have them, remember our hotline. I should pull that up. But while I'm doing that, my work wisdom is, people having been able to hire and interview and all of that a lot in my career so far. I'm always struck by how many people come to a job, like they apply for a job and they say they want a workplace where they can feel valued. They want a workplace where they can feel important. They want a workplace that they're excited about coming to every day. And then they get the job, right? So they have all the right answers in the interview and then they get the job. And then from that day forward, they poison the well, so to speak. It's like they come to work and before you know it, they're saying, well, that person over there thinks they're all that, or, you won't believe this. Someone said whatever, aren't they so messy? And they dramatize it. And sometimes, that drama is fun for a little giggle and a little yap for a day. But when it is persistent and consistent and it starts to just really change the work environment, I'm just fascinated. As many of you know, I'm working on a book about workplace belonging, and the number of people who want a positive workplace but do things daily to make the workplace not positive is high in number. And so I don't know if it's that people don't realize that by spreading these rumors or by whispering in people's ears or by talking about the person who didn't show up today, that you are creating the environment that you don't want, or if they do it intentionally. I'm not sure. The book has to be done in order for them to do that. But anyway, that's my work wisdom. Hey, if you want a positive workspace, go to the workplace and spread positivity. If you want a workplace where everyone gets along, go to the workplace and get along with people. If you want a workplace where there's no, what do they call them, silos and no division, then go to work and create more unity and positivity and celebrate people and, resist spreading rumors than doing the opposite. And I think we would find that workplaces end up being more humanizing and positive. All right, there it is. That's the work wisdom.
Love.
Now, if you all have work wisdom, you can drop into the chat. But until then, let's do this real quick. I'm going to get us started with our first issue. And while I transition here, I'm going to hit this. You're tuned in to Do Good Work Podcast, Sunday, August 23rd. It's your co-host, Terrell and J'Quen. Don't go anywhere. We'll come right back with our first issue. We're going to talk about the SAT.
You're listening to Do Good Work Podcast, sponsored by Do Good Work Enterprises, helping people and organizations make a difference in communities, schools, and broader society. Whether you need an inspiring keynote, a staff workshop, a culture survey, executive coaching, or more, Dr. Terrell Strayhorn and the Do Good Work team help leaders and businesses move from good intentions to good work with greater impact.
Because good work is not simply what you produce. Good work is about who you are and what changes because you showed up. Learn more today at dogoodworkllc.org by redefining success. We're changing lives. Do good work. There's a call that we all share. Life, love, business, education, making impact everywhere. Do good work. Come be inspired. Learn and grow. Breathe, believe, choose hope and joy. Let your light and purpose show. Do good work. Do good work. Real talk. Real change. New hope. New life. Lift a heart and change a life. Together we can make it right. Do good work. Do good work. Do good work.
Do Good Work Podcast.
Where courageous conversations come to life.
Do Good Work Podcast, powered by StreamYard on Spotify, YouTube, and platforms everywhere.
All right. Well, welcome back. And so let's get into this first issue here. Whether or not you know it, whether you work in education, higher education, or some other field, interestingly enough, higher education is experiencing a very kind of different admission season. This is right in your alley, J'Quen. But a very different admissions season this year. One is that there are increasingly more colleges and universities who are now turning back to the SAT and the ACT as part of the college application process. What you may not know is that during 2020, primarily because of Black Lives Matter and the pandemic, many colleges and universities, especially some highly selective places, these are the top 15, top 20, top 30 universities in the country. Remember, there are 4,300 colleges and universities in this country, and the top 100 or so started dropping the SAT and the ACT as a requirement during that time for all sorts of reasons. We're going to watch a news clip real quick. It'll tell us a little bit more about why this happened. Then we'll come back and discuss it. But the return of the SAT is what news people are calling it nowadays. The return of the ACT and SAT is back. And we're going to talk about why that's happening and whether or not we should be concerned about it. But let's first.
Welcome back to the Takeout. Fun fact, I applied to college in 1979, and I took the standardized tests, the SAT and the ACT, twice, both of them, because my scores were so bad, okay? That trend of standardized tests and application went on for decades, but it started to ebb a little bit before the pandemic, and it really expanded during the pandemic when, for lots of different reasons, college administrators and those reviewing applications decided there was something unequal about using standardized tests or giving them a certain weight. More than 1,300 professors at the University of California, however, recently signed a letter calling on the school, and you might say possibly begging the school to reinstate requirements for these tests for STEM applicants, writing, quote, "We now observe preparation gaps so severe that instructors must reteach middle school mathematics." Doug Belkin covers higher education for the Wall Street Journal and has written several articles about this. Doug, this caught our eye. Talk to us about this reassessment of this trend that really accelerated during the pandemic.
Yeah, this was predicted when they dropped the SAT by a lot of faculty who said that it was going to be a problem. What's happened is that grade inflation has become so problematic that it's hard to discern how prepared students are for university just by the grades. There's so many kids who have straight A averages now. The SAT and the ACT offers a benchmarked objective exam that gives students a way to show, how prepared they will be, and it's a pretty good predictor for college performance. And without it, a lot of kids are struggling.
And Doug, remind my audience the good intentions of those who said, wait a minute, we should devalue or possibly take out of the application process these standardized test scores in the first place. What were they driving at? What were they trying to solve?
The SATs and the ACTs track with wealth, class, race. And so you end up with kids who are coming from under-resourced schools, minority school districts who don't do as well on this exam. So they're competing against kids who are coming from wealthier districts and have access to better test preparation. And so the argument was that there are some kids who just weren't getting a fair shake because they didn't have, and they were bombing the test en masse. And so to get rid of it would get rid of a hurdle to get into college and get into good colleges.
You cover higher education, so you know that just because professors write a letter doesn't mean anything's going to change. Do you think this is part of a reassessment that's going to stick, meaning we will likely in a few years see standardized tests have a bounce back moment?
I do think that's likely. It's happening now. You know, the Ivy Leagues, all except for Columbia, I think, have reintroduced the exam. Most of the folks who take a close look at this say that it is a good predictor that students who take the exam and do well on it are more likely to succeed in college. And if they don't, then they're just more likely to drop out. So giving access to kids is helpful, but if they're not finishing their education, then it doesn't really help anybody.
Quick reminder to my audience, Doug, what does STEM stand for? And I've been reading recently that there's a reassessment of even the value of STEM education in the era of emerging AI technology.
STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And there's a reassessment with soup to nuts on education right now because AI can do so much. You know, where it lands and what jobs it pushes out right now is the $64,000 question. This has become an issue with the SAT at UC because it was STEM professors who wrote the letter, and they're saying that the kids can't keep up in those classes. As a result, they can't cover as much ground, and that, as a result of that, students are graduating at a lower rate, and they're not able to get jobs in appropriate numbers in the STEM fields in California.
Very quickly, Doug, when you talk about grade inflation at the high school level, help my audience understand what you're talking about.
Everybody gets an A. About 50% of the grades in high school right now are A's or A minuses. At elite colleges, it's even higher than that. So grade inflation has made transcripts almost irrelevant.
Wish I could have gotten a piece of that action in 1979. Doug Belkin of the Wall Street Journal. Great stuff. I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
All right, so let's get into this because I've got all sorts of questions and things I want to talk about. So hopefully for those of you who are tuning in, again, you're at Do Good Work Podcast Sunday with Terrell and J'Quen. We're talking about the resurgence of the SAT. And you just saw a clip that is not our own. It belongs to CBS News, but of a sort of coverage of this issue. And so let's talk about some of these matters. One is this idea that the tests are back. So many selective colleges are reinstating the SAT and the ACT, but not all. So they're doing this after making the test optional. That's the language that we started seeing around the time of the pandemic. But as was mentioned in the clip, people did this also because Black Lives Matter 2020. We realized, and you heard it, that the SAT is correlated strongly with wealth and resources and money. Said differently, when you got resources, you have the computer at home, you have access to information-rich kind of networks, you do better on the test because the test really doesn't always just measure, these are my words, my opinions, may not be J'Quen's, may not be yours, doesn't measure intelligence. It's not designed to do that. It doesn't measure knowledge of information only. It does privilege those who have exposure, privileges those who have resources, it privileges those who have wealth. And so the second thing is that supporters of the case are starting to say, as was mentioned in the video, that look, you got to make decisions about college. College is a tough decision, and J'Quen can talk about it. He's worked in college admissions for years. And when you're faced with all those applications and only a certain number of seats, you've got to decide who gets in and who's left out. And you're looking for information that will separate A from B, that will distinguish this person from another person. And as was mentioned in the video, grade inflation, probably artificial intelligence, AI, has now made transcripts almost irrelevant because everyone's getting an A. Everyone's coming with a 3.9 or 4.0 or 4.2. So the case for bringing the ACT and the SAT back is you need something to make these decisions, and it's helping to really identify those who are college ready, those who are high achieving. And then still, critics argued that the test, the prep for the test, the fees is discriminatory. It is not, it's unequal because every student does not have access, not because they're not smart or capable or college bound, but because they simply don't have the resources to pay for the test prep, the fees, in order to do better on the test. And so, contrary to popular belief, most colleges have not gone back. We still have about 2,000. There are 4,300 in the country. About half of them still have test optional or test free college admissions. But most colleges are starting to require something. And increasingly, these highly selective places are requiring the SAT and the SAT. And then lastly, before I kick in J'Quen for his thoughts, our question for you all: are the tests really measuring college readiness? And are they truly helping institutions make decisions about who's ready to succeed and who's not? Or is it really just privileging those who have access to resources? It's about prestige and selectivity. And with that, J'Quen, what are your opening thoughts about this whole move back to the SAT? It's back.
Yeah, I mean, well, one, everyone is not coming to college with a 3.5 or a 4.0. So pipe that down. Second thing is, I speak with a lot of faculty kind of daily about some of the challenges that they're seeing in the classroom. And one thing that they mention is that they're having to reteach content that students should already know. I don't necessarily think that the ACT or SAT will combat that, honestly. Another conversation that we have around admission requirements, what are we looking for in terms of admissions? What do students have to have when we look at like GPA, maybe some extracurricular activities, so forth? I think that the ACT, SAT will most likely come back as a requirement for college. But honestly, I think that, we also talk about holistic review, that we don't just look at test scores. We also look at what they, did over the course of their high school career. Did they join a club or organization? Did they play a sport? Did they volunteer? All those things, because the ACT or standardized test isn't something that, determines if you're going to be a good fit for the institution or if you're going to succeed at the school.
Yeah. I think that there are, here's the thing. I remember, I'm sure I've talked about it in this show. When I was at one of my previous institutions, not that it can't happen at my current, but it just hasn't yet. I remember working with the admissions office to do training for college readers. So for those who are maybe less familiar, the way that this works at a lot of colleges and universities is college students apply. They use either the Common App or institution-specific app, and that application requires all sorts of things like demographic information on the application, attaching your high school transcripts, sometimes a co-curricular transcript, or what we call an involvement transcript, that tells about like what you've done. Maybe you attach an essay or a resume. Sometimes colleges and universities often ask students for an interview. Interviews can be done in person. They can be done on the screen, or increasingly, I've seen where colleges and universities will ask students to record themselves responding to a certain question and then attach that online to their college admission. So think about that. You've got 5, 6, 7 different data points. In addition, there could be letters of reference as well as test scores. So when people say holistic review, what they're saying is that generally college admissions decisions are not based on a single factor. So it's not like you just apply or you just send in a letter of reference. It's that the decision takes into account all 8 or 9 of these. And so most of my institutions that I've worked at have holistic college admissions, and it previous places, I've actually worked with enrollment management to train their team on reviewing college applications. And they're readers. So readers are not always the admissions team, at least at the places where I've worked. They might take folks who are in retirement, folks who are educators and now retired, or even current teachers, and have them read the essays of students along with their application. And then those individuals would make a recommendation about whether or not that student would be admitted. And so then the college counselor would look at all of that information, the application, the letters of reference, the interview, the reader's evaluation, and then make a final decision. And then we would build the class, so to speak, from that. All right. So all that to say, during 2020, after 2020, many institutions went to test optional and test free kinds of environments where you still made college decisions based on a lot of information, interviews and letters of reference and transcripts. And I want to come back to what you said about transcripts and grades, but also application and social media review. There are all sorts of things. So I don't want people to think people were just willy-nilly saying yes or no. It's just that this one element of the application was relaxed or removed. And now we're finding that it's coming back, and largely because of faculty. There's a big story out there about faculty at the University of California, multiple campuses, who are pushing for the institution to bring SAT and ACT back because they're finding that there are a lot of students who are in class, this is my point, high GPA, but still academized by faculty as academically unready. And so you made a comment. I want to push back against it a little bit. At least from my seat, I'm finding that not everyone comes into 3.9 or 4.1, but I'm finding large numbers of students who are coming to college who are honor roll students, who are top of their class, graduating the top 10%. I'm talking 3.5s and above, larger proportions of incoming students with those kind of GPAs than 10 years ago. And still in that first semester, many of them, a larger proportion of them than 10 years ago, being placed on academic probation, academic warning, dropping out of college, or experiencing really low grades in that first semester. And it begs the question, and that is, what does that high school GPA really reflect? And I think, as was mentioned in the video, we do know that grade inflation is real. Lots of people, this is a day and age where everyone gets a sticker, everyone passes the test, effort is praised. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that if that is the approach to evaluation and grading by and large, then what it does, I think, is it boosts this sense of readiness for the student who comes out of high school with a 3.5, 3.4, 3.3, goes off to a college and realizes, oh my gosh, I mean, this is a great example. You used it in your dissertation, National Survey of Student Engagement data, NSSE data, suggests that there are far fewer students graduating from high school today who report ever having written a paper that is 5 pages or more. But yet they come to college, and in that first semester of college, it would be very easy, depending on where you are, community college, 2-year or 4-year, to have an 8-page paper, 7-page paper. But I hope that your first time writing a 5-page paper is not your first semester in college. And that it's not your first time writing a paper from start to finish, because prior you've been expected to sort of build on it incrementally or to do group papers. Again, there's beautiful benefit to group papers. There's beautiful benefit to scaffolding a project. But I think when you go off to college, the demands of high school have to be a good bridge into the academic rigor of college. Otherwise, I think we set students up. And that's why I think the SAT is coming back. I'm not sure it's the answer, but it certainly is an important conversation. Thoughts?
I mean, I think that we can't blame the students because they have a high GPA coming into college. I mean, again, the SAT, ACT is not going to, it may make a little difference, but it's not going to make a large difference. I've seen students come into college with a 16 ACT score, but was one of our best students. Second, some students have a high GPA, a low ACT, SAT. They're just not really good test takers. Some come in with anxiety. But, just say that, oh, so many more students are coming in with high GPAs and then they're failing in college. I think we could put the onus, all the onus on the student. I work hand in hand a little bit with some high schoolers and middle school teachers as well, hearing from them that they say that, even it's coming from leadership, is that, for example, there's a teacher, middle school teacher, who had a student in their classroom. The principal was there. The principal was one of the students' parents, and the principal came to them and was like, "Hey, so and so is getting low scores on their test, low scores on their assignments. I need you to allow them to retest or redo that assignment and grade it again." What is a teacher supposed to do? Say no? Argue with their leader? I don't think so. I think that a lot of times that some of these things are coming from leadership, telling teachers to pass them along or allow them to redo an assignment or redo a test, so forth. And then when they get to college, they're probably not prepared. But again, I'm still not going to sit here and say that ACT and SAT alone will show us if a student is prepared or not for college.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I remember when I was at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, my colleague Norma Mertz and I, along with our colleague Grady, I had this interesting question. So, most people who know me pretty well and know my research know that I don't put a lot of stock into standardized tests. Not because standardized tests to me, like the ACT and the SAT, obviously are very correlated with admissions decisions. Why? Because colleges and universities use them to decide who gets in and who stays out. So there are, if you get a student with a very, very low ACT, the odds of them being admitted to college are not zero, but they're not very high. A person with a high, I've met students who say I got a 36 on the ACT, a perfect score. I actually met two folks who said they got a perfect score in the SAT, and their odds of getting into college are very high. So while being on the faculty at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, we used the GRE at that time to make decisions about graduate school. And as a person who just didn't believe the GRE was telling me a whole, because I met people who had really great GRE scores who weren't that hot as graduate students immediately. And I met people who had mediocre, if not quite frankly, poor GRE scores, who were remarkable graduate students. And so talking to my colleagues, I said, I want to do a study. So we did a study on our own students, where I took our database of our students over like the past 5 years and took all of their GRE scores, because we had them. And then I had the faculty, the full-time faculty, rate each student by name according to their thinking ability, their writing ability, and their overall assessment of them as a graduate student. And then I analyzed the data quantitatively and then held those up. And what we found is there was no strong correlation between GRE scores and how we felt as a faculty about them as students. Said differently, it might influence our decision to let them in, but it doesn't tell us a lot about their ability once they're in there, their readiness, their ability to learn, their ability to improve. And so I just want to temper the conversation a bit. I'm not saying that ACT and SAT aren't important. Quite frankly, when you have to make decisions, you need data. Maybe this is one of many pieces of data you would use in making that decision. But to the comment you made, absolutely positively, no, students are not to blame. That's not my point. My point is that grades are inflated, and obviously students don't give themselves grades. So the onus really goes to the educators. And yes, educators are responding to pressures from administrators and pressures from school personnel, and probably even policy pressures at the district level, because everyone wants to have a passing school, a passing district. We have literally, I live in a state where our school district was taken over by the state because of low performance. So I get these are real consequences. By the same token, no, I don't think teachers should be put in a position where they resist the directive of their supervisor, aka the principal or the superintendent. But I am calling for open, democratic, and deliberative districts and schools where that perspective from a teacher can be aired appropriately, can be heard, where superintendents and principals don't behave as if they are all knowing all things, but they might give a directive to a teacher and then hear this conversation and say, wait a minute, the consequence of me saying support all of our students and celebrate their genius is they're getting inaccurate information through their grades about their readiness for college. So now our students are going off to college where they're not succeeding there. So now we might modify it, right, to where I still believe in assets-based, growth-minded feedback. I don't think we should, demonize students and punish them for asking questions and think outside the box. But I think all of this should work together, that ultimately what students need is what every human gets, and that is honest feedback and a valid appraisal or assessment of their ability. Like, I can say this, I didn't get a 1600 or a full perfect score on I didn't take the ACT, I took the SAT, and I didn't get a perfect score, but I got a score that was high enough that told me I probably could go to college, probably should go to college. And when I get there, I probably could do well. It didn't say it was going to be easy. It made it clear to me that I was going to have the work. I was going to have the practice. My parents invested in me. So I took prep courses. They got me a personal sort of coach around vocabulary. But I then went to college and I used that information to work hard and do my assignments and study hard and join clubs and organizations and meet my faculty in a way that ultimately got me through PhD and several other grad programs. So I'm just saying, I think feedback is so important. So if I'm pushing back against anything, I am pushing back against grade inflation, to say policies ought to be set where students get real accurate information about their abilities, so they can then use that information to make good decisions about the behaviors they would need. Because the responsibility is not on just students and families. Colleges and universities have to create environments where students, regardless of their, everyone's going to be on a spectrum of readiness. I know a guy who went to college with me at UVA who was remarkably smart from the time he started. He finished in the top of the class. He came out of high school at the top of his class. He finished in college at the top of his class. But he also had access to a lot of resources, a lot of awareness, a lot of he was just exposed in ways that most of us were not. I'm proud of him. I'm proud to know him. And UVA did a good job of preparing him and training him, just like I think UVA did a good job of supporting me as well.
Yeah, let me just say this. I think I'm not for or against standardized testing coming back for admissions counselors to make decisions. Because I have full confidence in people in that space to look at applications fully and make a recommendation. So if they want to bring this back, if colleges and universities want to bring this back, it's just another layer that students have to go through, which I think is okay. But I will say this: remember that time you and I were in Knoxville working in that co-working space, and we bumped into a guy who has a company that works with high school students and help them improve their ACT, SAT scores. And a lot of the students that he worked with, after, going through his program, their scores increased by like 5 or 6%, would you say?
Yeah.
Right. So also too, once we looked into some of these students and it shared what high school they went to, we were able to assume how much money their parents made. Right. So I know for a fact there is someone that I know who has taken they're a junior. They have taken the ACT at least 8 times. The first time they gotten it or taken the ACT, yeah, they made a 27. They won a 30. Again, this family has the means to continue to pay for the test. There are some students who may get a 20 or 21, 22, whatever it may be, but their families just don't have the means to continue to pay for them to have to take that test, and they're just stuck with the 22, right? But maybe to get into the school you need a 24. Some schools don't accept a what's it called? Lost my mind. I think it's a composite score where you could it takes your best score from each subject and combine it to make a sub-score. That's what it's called, sub-score, right? Some schools don't take that. So again, yes, ACT, SAT can play a major role whether you get into a school, whether you or if you don't. Also too, like even if for schools who are test optional, a lot of counselors encourage students to take the standardized tests because there are some scholarships that the school offers to incoming students that require a test score to be on file, that require a certain score to be considered, and then they are either eligible to receive that money or they're not based on those test scores.
Yeah. Love it. So listen, this is where y'all's part comes in. If you haven't already, let us know. Do SAT and SAT scores reveal readiness in your opinion? 2, who do you think benefits from these test-based admissions? And then what's missing? And you can drop a comment in the chat on any of the platforms we're coming. We'll share it with you live. And so before we go much further, I'm going to kick it over to J'Quen, who's going to take us to our next issue. But if you haven't already, run over to the site, subscribe, follow, like, and stay tuned for next week's episode 2 of Do Good Work Podcast, our second issue. J'Quen, you have the floor.
So we read a story, I think a couple of days ago, about transgender, non-binary, and gender expansive students' experiences in schools. They surveyed roughly a little over 2,000 middle school and high school students and found that many of them, I don't know if it's already queued up, but an image we can share on screen. If not, I can pull it over here and get it in the queue. However, their experiences in school, and what they found was a little over half of the respondents shared that they had a negative experience at school, whether that was verbal harassment or physical abuse. 25% missed at least 16 days of school due to some of those difficult experiences. And not only did they miss school, but ultimately some of them and their families chose to go to a different school. So I'll stop there before we move into some of the I guess impactful practices that teachers and leaders can practice. But again, some of these students are LGBTQ plus students in the school system experiencing negative events, whether that's verbal abuse, harassment, insults, comments towards them, making it hard for them to focus in school, participate fully, and ultimately it impacts their grades.
Yeah. I'll let you pull up that summary image. And I think obviously my lens into this issue will be around belonging. And that is, everyone wants to feel a sense of belonging, and everyone they have a human right to belong, regardless of their race, gender, sexual orientation, political affiliation, religious background, height, weight. If they have money or if they don't have money, I think that we want to create colleges, universities, schools, workplaces, communities, neighborhoods, and a world where everyone feels safe and secure. And so if that's not happening, I think we have to be honest with ourselves about that. And we've written about LGBTQIA2S plus students. I certainly have had LGBTQIA2S plus students in my classroom, in my lab, on my research team, who have protracted my work on belonging in different directions. And this particularly focuses on trans and non-binary. So we probably should set some definitions for folks who are listening in and may not know these terms. It may be different. What do we mean by transgender and what do we mean by non-binary? But I have learned from students who are enrolled into college, and let's say that they are transgender. That means their gender expression is a cross. It is different from the gender that either they were born into or that they were initially expressing. So oftentimes we're talking about someone who might be born, as a female and project or present, show up as man, transgender, or the opposite, someone who shows up as male, who then shows up in the world as woman. Gender for me is man and woman. Sex is male and female. So a transgender person, it really is about how you project, how you are perceived, how you show up in the world. It has nothing to do with your sex organs. Like, there are trans men, people who were born female but show up in the world as a man, who still have their female organs. The moment you're starting to alter and adjust and change your sex organs, you're talking about transsexuals. All right. And then non-binary are those who just don't fit the binary. Like, you walk into a store. I remember years and years and years ago, you could walk into a store and you would clearly know the women's side from the men's side. I don't know that I experience stores that way much anymore. And I also don't experience fashion or clothing that way anymore. I think things are just out there for people to wear, and people, depending on who they are, they decide what they want to carry. I mean, I know women who wear men's sweatpants, and I know men who wear women's sweatpants because they fit better. And probably my grandma, my great grandma would have been like, "Oh my God, that's different." But nowadays, most of the world doesn't fit according to some binary of black, white, good, bad, up, down, sun, dark. So non-binary are students who don't fit that male, female, woman, man kind of binary. They express both or somewhere along the spectrum. And so your article that you're talking to us about says that 60% of transgender and non-binary students experience a negative event at school. And you talked about that negative event being verbal harassment, missing school, physical assault, slander, or some sort of defamatory term. And this is consistent with, in my 2019 book, I think, on belonging, I have a chapter devoted to LGBTQ students. And I capture a lot of this data, where it was still the same, that many of them say, regardless of what we just talked about, having high SAT and ACT scores and going to a highly selective place and being college ready, they could still be subjected to being called slurs and hateful, homophobic, sexist words, being physically assaulted or harmed or threatened, and then certainly verbally harassed.
What a good point. I'm glad that you brought it back to the other thing, because that's still pissing me off that we're having these conversations. It's like, although a student may have a high ACT or SAT score, and they come into college, and we're assuming that because of their test scores, they're prepared for school and they should pass the courses and that they should be involved. Yet we miss some of the experiences they may have outside of class or within the class, right? There are some students who are academically gifted, but because of what they look like or how they show up, they're ridiculed or insulted or, deemed incompetent because of the color of their skin, or because they how they express themselves in the world, right? Those things have psychological impacts on them. And because of, like when we talk about mental health and safety and security, like if you don't feel safe or secure in that environment, yeah, you're probably not focused on the lesson. Yeah, you're probably not going to do well on the test. Yeah, you're probably not going to participate in clubs or orgs so the question becomes like, what environment are we creating for students to succeed?
Yeah. And I love what you said there. Listen to the language. What environments are we creating for students to succeed? So it's not the student's responsibility to find a sense of belonging and find their own success. I'm not saying students don't have a role to play. They got to go to class. They have to study. They have to pay attention. They have to participate. They have to engage. But the other part of the equation is we've got to create the conditions for them to succeed. We have to create the classroom. So some students don't participate, not because they don't know the answer, but because they'll be ridiculed. They'll be bullied for raising their hand and offering an answer because they'll be labeled teacher's pet. And I know there are people out there who will say, well, they just have to have tough skin and don't. No, we need to create conditions and environments where, one, we celebrate people participating, what I call contribution recognition in the belonging work. Two, where we model the kind of behaviors we want students to repeat, and where we will not tolerate students. I can't even count on my two hands the number of times in my life where I raised my hand because I was eager to learn. I had the right answer. The teacher affirmed it. And then later some peer said, oh, you're a kiss up. You're a suck up. Oh, you're a teacher's pet. Oh, so you think you all that. And what does that make you do? Because everybody wants to be included. It makes you say, you know what? Next time I have the right answer, I'm going to downplay it. I'm going to act like I don't have the answer. Not because I'm not smart, not because I'm not courageous. Well, maybe I wasn't courageous. I was 7. You know, most people at 7 are not walking around super courageous. But I think people who say, well, students just have to push through. Sometimes you don't want to push through. We have to create the kind of classroom environments, the school environments, the districts where, one, that kind of engagement, that kind of excitement about learning is praised, it's celebrated, it's recognized so that students want to repeat it. And two, where that other behavior where you demonize and criticize and bully people who are focused on learning will not be tolerated. You'll be held accountable, not kicking you out of school, but getting you into some sort of experience where we start working on behavior modification. How can we convert you into a person who understands? That's what everyone should be doing. You shouldn't be bullying J'Quen for participating. You ought to want to be more like him. Right? And how do we create an environment where students are compelled to do the things that teachers need them to do? Anyway, don't get me excited.
Well, it'll get you excited because although we got things to do, I'm also okay to stay. The second thing is, like, although these things are, all this report kind of illuminates the challenges that these students face, it also sheds light on like some of the impactful practices that we can incorporate in our work. One is affirming each student's name and pronouns. So again, we know that names and pronouns matter, although we talked about it a lot more a couple of years ago, not as much now. I remember we used to go to conferences and people used to share their pronouns. It was like nonstop. It was a thing, like if you didn't do it, you probably would be ridiculed. But you know, it's not as a hot topic now. But again, you know, names. There are students who, you know, on paper, they when they were signing up for school, it may be Bob, but they want to be called Bailey, right? Use that name. You know, they on their, you know, paperwork, it may say male, but they want to use she, her. Use those pronouns. Again, I think that I've had conversations with a couple of public school teachers, and many of them have said, like, you know, just in casual conversation. And again, there's not judging them. It's just a moment for us to just talk about what's going on in the school system. And they were saying, like, you know, there's so many students here. One day they want to be called Bailey, and then they want to be called Sarah, and they want to be, I can't keep up. All right. But again, this is a time where, you know, I was sharing with them, like, they're still trying to figure out themselves. Right. And a lot of them understand that you may mess up, but there's a way, like once you mess up, like say, you know, I apologize. I'm still working on it. I'm always trying, just to let them know, like, you know, you care about the name that they want to be called, and you will do your very best to call them that name. Second thing is supporting student-led groups like GSA. GSA stands for Gender Sexuality Alliances. You know, this is kind of, from my understanding, is like, it's kind of open to all. This is just a group for them just to come together and be around peers who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, but most of the times they also welcome others. Third is teach and talk about LGBTQ plus topics. One is, you know, when we think about the content that we teach, you know, when we read books or when we show films or media, that we incorporate people who are just in representation matters. So like people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, when we talk about the Stonewall movement, things like that, to bring into some of the things that we're teaching, and then allow them to be part of sports and facilities that align with their gender identity, I think is something that is controversial. That's always a topic in the school system. But what we have seen is that students who are allowed to play the sports that aligns with their identities, they're more likely to, again, to participate, show up, be involved, meet new people, have fun.
I think about this in a couple of ways. Sort of work backward. I could imagine for a lot of folks that, the whole sports and facilities issue could be very political, and that they may or may not have political opinions that align with certain perspectives on that issue. Here's the beauty of it. You know this, that I serve on the board of Rainbow Labs, a nonprofit organization in LA. Shout out to Rainbow Labs. Does really good work for LGBTQIA2S plus youth in that area. And one of our major programs is around sports. And here's a cool thing. Without even getting to the politics of it all, sports just is a great space or terrain for all youth. I was just talking to my daughter today about her daughter in sports and her partner's sons in sports, because if you're going to teach kids about teamwork and about knowing themselves and about how to be collegial and about how to compromise, there are lots of ways to teach it, but sports becomes a great terrain for doing this. And I wouldn't get lost in the political polemics of that debate of this and who gets to be on what team and what dressing room or fitting room, or what they call locker room do they get to use. But just the importance of sport and play for young people, for students, and to learn the kind of outcomes that we desire. Secondly, when teaching and talking about LGBTQIA2S plus topics, I said this in a book chapter about African-American students, that we shouldn't just teach and talk about LGBTQIA2S plus topics during June, which is Pride Month. Year round, I think we should have classrooms. I envision classrooms in districts and schools and college universities where we talk about the diversity of students that we teach year round, right? So even if I'm teaching a class on world history, that I'm also acknowledging the contributions of LGBTQIA2S plus inventors and politicians to society, and that students don't have to go out on their own to talk about that. That the same way that we talk about the contributions of President Obama as the first Black president of the United States, I hope that there are classrooms and world history spaces where we're also talking about the contributions of Buttigieg to politics and his partner, Chase, who's a teacher. I just think that makes sense. As a public speaker, as a public intellectual who is mindful that my audience is broad and diverse, I am, you can attest to it. I've been on stages where I will talk about teachers working with parents. And when I say parents, I say, you've got to call up mom, dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad. I'll just cover it all, because you don't know the arrangements of the families that your students at your school or your district are in. And why get canceled talking about a particular type or forgetting a particular type when we know that the world is just vast and it's complex? And I think the complexity is its beauty. And because of that awareness, I strive in classrooms and boardrooms, on stages, on social media, to reflect that knowledge of awareness through covering as many of those possibilities as possible. So I think talking and teaching about these, not just in June, but across the year, across the curriculum, not just the public, highly visible folks, but even those who are less well known. So even if you're talking about Black history, you might talk about Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin's a very famous name of an African-American man who was gay identified, was single-handedly the mastermind behind the March on Washington. Now, Martin Luther King and others didn't put him forward at that time because he was gay, and he had a sort of reputation for going to gay clubs and hanging out with gay men. So they didn't want the march on Washington to be compromised by that, but they entrusted a gay black man to be the mastermind behind what becomes one of the most significant social movements in our time. And how are we talking about that in history classrooms? And how are we talking about that in sociology classrooms? And identity-based, or what is it called? Gender and sexuality studies and African-American studies. Anyway, I'll stop there. All right. And lastly, I'll say this, affirm the students' names. Listen, names do matter. I don't know, for those of you who follow us on social media, go to social media, look at Do Good Work, look at my page, and hopefully J'Quen's page. If not, then look at J'Quen and Do Good Work's page. By the end of the night, we're going to have a video shared or some content I created where I thought it was beautiful. And J'Quen wrote back and was like, oh, this is really great. And then I heard it on a different device, and I was like, I think that man just mispronounced J'Quen's name. And I asked him, I said, did he mispronounce your name? He said, yes. And so for that reason, I got to do it over. Why? Because names matter. At the moment I heard the mispronunciation of his name, to me, the ad is no longer about us. Well, take it to the classroom. The moment that you call Mel versus Meg, Mel's not hearing you. The classroom's no longer a welcoming space. The lecture is no longer relevant. This is no longer a place where I can thrive. You know, I know for a fact I have taught students who do not use singular pronouns. Their pronouns are they and them. And when, you know, I was just in a meeting in the last month where someone's been very outspoken about their fact that their pronouns are they, them. Now, on screen, someone may judge that they are woman presenting, but their pronouns are not she and her. But yet multiple people refer to her and she and her. And I remember one time in an interview, a trans student in preparation for my 2019 book on belonging said that every time that happens, it's like someone walking up and punching you in the face. Just imagine punching your student in the face, punching your colleague in the face, punching your neighbor in the face, punching your mentor in the face every time you call them by a pronoun that is not theirs, which I think then begs the accountability of just trying. So I've convinced myself, if I don't know their pronouns, I just use people's names. So it'll be J'Quen, what are you thinking? Can y'all tell J'Quen what we need? J'Quen, I'm gonna call you tomorrow. J'Quen, thanks for being here. That's a way to get around it for practical tips for people, because otherwise these school environments, these learning spaces become hostile environments where students don't feel safe, secure. They experience verbal harassment. They miss a lot of days and they actually either leave their school. I'll give you some final comments.
Yeah, good stuff. I think that's you wrapped it up. But again, you know, this is, although we talk about transgender and binary students, a lot of this stuff applies to all the students that we kind of serve. You know, names do matter, pronouns do matter, making sure that we have groups and organizations that allow people to see themselves on campus. We have content and curriculum that, again, represents a diverse group of people. And then again, there are some things that we talked about today around facilities and clubs and sports. You know, find ways to say yes rather than saying no.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you all for tuning in. This is another fantastic episode of Do Good Work podcast with Terrell and J'Quen. We are delighted to have you join us for this evening show. Don't forget, if you watch the live or if you go back and watch the recording, drop some comments in the chat. We will respond to you. Do your word of the week. Tell us what you think about the SAT and the ACT. And then how can we make sure that classrooms and colleges, universities, and workplaces are more welcoming and hospitable to those who in the LGBTQIA2S plus community, especially our trans brothers and sisters, feel safe, secure, and a part of it. We appreciate you for tuning in. We're going to look forward to you joining us again next Sunday for another episode. Thank you, Brother Reginald. We appreciate you for tuning in. Listen, don't go anywhere. We're going to do a quick commercial, and then we'll close with our song, and we'll see you next week. Listen, if no one's told you this, you matter, you are enough, and you belong here. When you go out this week, tomorrow's Monday. When you go out this week, don't be afraid to do something. We're going to do something good. And we call it do good work. Peace.
Look at me for a second. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not behind. You're tired. Tired from carrying expectations nobody can see. Tired from comparing your real life to everybody else's highlight reel. Tired from waking up already overwhelmed by a to-do list that keeps getting longer while your energy keeps getting shorter. And the hard part is that eventually you start believing the lie. The lie that because you feel stuck, you are stuck. The lie that because progress is slow, growth isn't happening. The lie that because you've fallen down before, you shouldn't try again. But my research and scholarship teaches us something powerful. Your brain is like a powerful muscle. It changes through repetition, not perfection. Small actions repeated daily literally rewire the brain. One walk, one application, one chapter, one prayer, one deep breath, one healthy boundary, one more try. That's how transformation happens. Not all at once, but all of a sudden. And positive psychology tells us that momentum is deeply connected to meaning. Meaning creates motivation. Motivation creates movement. Movement creates confidence. Let me say that again. Movement creates confidence. That confidence, it becomes evidence. Evidence that you're capable. Evidence that you're healing. Evidence that you still have something left in you. Listen to me carefully. You do not need to become a different person to change your life. No, you need consistent moments where you do something different. Get up, buy it, try it, call them, block them, run, walk, dance. Because some of y'all have survived things that should have taken you out. But you're still here, still standing, still dreaming, still becoming. That means there's still purpose on your life. You're here because there's more. So apply for the job, start the business, go back to school, send the email, take the class, flip the room, try again. Because your future is not waiting on perfection, it's waiting on permission. And today, you stop waiting for somebody else to hand you what's already placed inside you. Go get it. I'm rooting for you. For more, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube.
Every day is a gift I get to unwrap. Every morning is a new opportunity. Every breath is a miracle. Every moment is precious and fleeting. Every day I'm alive is a day I'm blessed. Every single day is a gift. I'm not promised tomorrow. I'm not guaranteed next week. All I have is today, and today is enough. Today is beautiful, today is perfect, today is exactly what I need. Every day is a gift I'm not taking for granted. Oh, some people don't wake up this morning. Some people don't get another day.